I interrupt your normal YouTube viewing experience for more knife addiction here in the Nutnfancy project. It is May 2012 and you're welcome. You might hate me more though because I think you may want to buy this knife too. I call it the Wicked 66. That's not its real name, of course. Real name is the Viper Start Knife. I actually like my version a little bit better because it describes this knife better. It is a wicked tactical blade, and yes, it's heavy, 6.6 ounces. In a lot of ways, defying some TMP conventions, i.e. stuff that I really like and rave about in all my reviews. You may want to go buy it. I'm going to get it to you for a screaming deal, which will make it all that more irresistible. So if your wife or girlfriend is around, you might send them on an errand, bar the doors, turn the phone off. Here we go, Nutnfancy style into the POUs. You bet, tactical blade. 6.6 ounce tactical blade. Nutnfancy, you like lightweight knives. You're right, I do like lightweight knives. But when I get a 4-inch blade like I do with that wicked blade on the table and a big old ergonomic handle, I can take the 6.6 ounces. It's what I've always said in my reviews. If the knife delivers some type of functionality to me, especially in size and ergonomics, sometimes, just sometimes, I'll take the extra weight. As a tactical folder, the Start, i.e. the Wicked 66, excels in that role. You'll really see it when I talk about the handle, and there is somewhat of a traction plan present here. If I carry this blade, for me, still talking about POUs, it's too big for EDC. It's too heavy for EDC, I know, because last few weeks I've been trying it that way. In that case, like I've said before, I'll carry, I don't know, my Cadet Victorinox. It's in my pocket right now, as it always is, one color or another. Or a 1.2 ounce SOG Flash, 2.2 ounce SOG Blink, Spyderco Dragonfly, Delica 4, you get the picture. Bring a smaller blade. In this POU of tactical, its job is an emergency defensive tool. I think it will excel at that role easily. How about collectible? This knife is made in Menaggio, Italy. I don't even know if I said that right. There's the address of the company. What's up in Italy from Nutnfancy Project? I'll watch this review. I would say yes. How many of these have you seen? Perhaps after this video you'll see more and it will turn out to be quite a successful design. I really don't know. But I think as a collectible in your collection, giving you enjoyment, you love to fondle it, it puts a smile on your face, absolutely, because it's been doing it with me for the last 2 weeks. There you go. That's POUs as I see it, onto steel and blade shape. I told you in the intro that it defies, I don't know, some of my favored conventions. And one of them would be, let's bring out the Spyderco Police. Full flat grind. I have hundreds of hours, it seems, of videos out there talking about FFG and its benefits, how it slices, it's so functional, it's just wonderful, it's easy to sharpen. And yet this knife, there's a nice size comparison, we'll show a couple more competitive offerings as the video progresses. Yet this knife completely departs from that. It's not FFG at all. It's a spear point hollow ground blade. And yet, I love it. As soon as I saw it, I loved it. Remember what I said in some other videos? Knives have to pretty much connect to us guys, and some girls too, in the soul. Aesthetically, is it a knife that we like looking at? And this one does it for me. It's just a, sorry for my French, but a badass tactical knife. It just has that look to it. And yet it has an elegance to it with that spear point coming down, large unsharpened swedge, the hollow grind, and a perfect relief edge, I might add. I dig it. You're going to get two different steels depending on which model you buy. Again, this is a CN model, if I'm not mixing up my catalog numbers. It happens sometimes. Here comes another one. This is the Victor 5850CV, and it's gorgeous as well. Completely different coloration. Check this. This is black G10. I'm sorry, not G10, but micarta. And this is tan micarta. And this is a satin finished blade. Nice. And the steel on this is a beloved steel here in TMP. That's N690. Very fine grained, holds an edge adequately, easy enough to sharpen, and it has amazing rust resistance. It's a European steel. I've tested it lots here, kind of like in that combative edge M1 I did last year, or whenever it was. So that's a bead blasted N690 blade. This one, which I believe is DLC coated, is a D2 blade. And yes, I thumped on this knife pretty hard. No, I didn't baton with it. This is a lockback. I found that this knife slices excellent in my cardboard cutting tests. And I also wanted to see how that black finish would wear. You can see it wears pretty good. I haven't even cleaned the blade since I did it. So cut after cut, D2 version is the one I thumped on. Performed really, really well. In fact, after my cardboard cutting was over, checked out the blade edge, and I was amazed to see that it was quite usable. Quite. Probably one of the best D2 cutters I've seen in a while. Maybe it's because of that very thin hollow ground blade. At least in that portion right there. See what I'm saying? Once again, a beautiful relief edge. And you can see, by the way, that has been resharpened. I just couldn't help myself. I slapped it on the EPA. You'll see my review posting soon. That is the Edge Pro Apex Sharpener. My favorite sharpener in the world. And I worked it up to, or I should say down to 1,000 grit. And I didn't even have to reprofile that primary bevel. It just was easy to sharpen because they had it right. Let's look at the bevel on the N690 version. This has not been cut with. And you can see it's a little bit shallower, a little bit steeper. This one out of box, I'm talking the D2 version, came just about like you're seeing. Your knives may vary up and down. Anyways, I sharpened it. I couldn't help myself, and man, did it produce just a nasty, beautiful polished edge out of that D2. The N690 would be no less. Let's do just a quick paper cut. Oh, insanity. Yeah, it's wicked sharp, dudes. Wicked sharp. I love the steel choices they chose. I have no issues with them at all. They're just perfection. And the blade shapes for my primary POU, that is tactical, I think are ideal as well. This also pierce cut the cardboard readily. No surprise there, right? Saber ground, that's kind of what we would expect. There's your tip. There's a close look at the hollow grinding. My only real issue with hollow grinding is over time, if a blade is hard used and we continually sharpen it over the years, we back up into that hollow portion of the blade. But as a tactical blade, I don't think you will see that much use with it unless you EDC it, which could very well be the case for you guys. Great job on the blade though. And that brings us partially to traction. Check that out. Campaign right there, bro. And it works. I wish there was more of it, and I would slightly raise that thumb ramp if I was in charge of designing this knife. But as it stands right now, beautiful jimping. And it locks in just perfectly. We'll get to more of the handle details here in just a second. How about the speed? I did tell you, notice how I fold that, by the way. Large folder, I turn upside down. I don't do it like this, so I get my fingers in the way. Be careful. I told you it was a lock-back design, right, dudes? Sure enough, not a liner lock. Nutnfancy, do you have an issue with that? Personally, absolutely not. It is kind of a training issue when we work so many, I don't know, locking liners or wherever you're used to, axis lock. If you carry this knife, you may, just like I've said in other reviews, have to go back and remember, oh yeah, back here. Speed is perfection. Let's try that again. And I have a tripod between me and the camera, so I'm not really getting leverage on this. If I was just in front of you, you and I talking blades, you would see it just leaps out of there. Once again, proving you don't need an auto for insane speeds. Phosphor bronze bushings, I believe, in there. Lockup, perfection. No problems at all. Up, down, side to side, even after testing. Did you get that? Even after testing. You might notice the absence of something. Pivot screws. I took the knife scales off to check it out, and they're actually under there in a certain form. They're actually kind of a wrench form that you can tighten or loosen the pivot point up with. And there's hollowing of the handle slabs, so it mates right over that pivot point. So they are adjustable. That's my point. The downside is you're going to have to take the handle slabs off if you need to adjust it. Both of these knives, and I examined, I think, a total of 4 of them, all had very nice lockups. I did note on 1 or 2 versions that when you opened it, it had kind of a gritty sound to it. This one, the black version, which to me looks more OD than anything, actually had it too. And so what I did is I took compressed air, blew it out before I put any oil in it, and it went away. So just be advised. Maybe yours will be like that. Just blow it out with air. I don't think you're going to have to do anything to the pivot point, judging from the samples I've seen. Speed, lockup, amazing. It is a lockback. When we talk about strength, I don't know if we should say that it is on the order of the Cold Steel Triad lock, because there's no interrupter mechanism between the blade tang and the lock bar. But again, in the philosophy of uses that we've talked about, is that really necessary? I will say no. That takes us to the handle. This is I wouldn't say the main, but a main reason why I think it is just a wicked tactical blade. There is lots of room on this handle. My glove size, again, is large. This handle is perfection. Just perfection. It feels good. I have just slight bumping coming in here to the handle flare at the rear of the Viper Start, the Wicked 66. Feels good. Reverse grip, which could be a player depending on technique, who you are, fits perfect. There is a downside, and that is lanyard attachment. Viper, are you listening? It's going to be pretty much impossible to get a 550 cord in that, what I think is a very cool location for a lanyard. It's just very narrow. So you see I'm running very thin nylon cord in there now. This might even be Nomex, I forget. And this works great, and I recommend definitely having some type of lanyard on your Viper Start to get it out of the pocket and hang on to it. Start the extraction process. And I have a very cool surprise for you on this knife too. But that is the lanyard attachment. I would make it a little bit deeper if you can in subsequent versions, so we can get hollowed out 550 cord in there. Look at the shaped micarta scales. First off, they're just gorgeous. They're great looking. They chose 2 perfect colors. Desert tan and black, again, is what they're calling this one. They're multi-layered. They're very attractive to me, and they're very warm to the touch. I find when they're wet, they offer outstanding traction. When they're dry, if your hands are dry, maybe not so much. They may be slick. You almost wet them up to get good traction. But in conjunction with a handle shape that is a kind of a guard here, I'll say a shallow finger choil right there. With a ramp, I say you have maybe excellent or good traction on the Viper Start. The reason it's 6.6 ounces, well, there's a couple reasons. One, it has a big old blade on it. Wide blade, I might add. And then it's fully steel lined on both sides, and there's no attempt at all to mill those out, which I'm sorry sucks. I'd like to see them shave some out, but then it wouldn't be called the Wicked 66. Nutnfancy be called the Wicked 57? That's not as cool. All right, you have a point there. I don't know if they will or not, but you can see it's just solid steel, and that is some hardened stainless steel in there. Incidentally, there are 2 spring bars on the sides of the knives captured by the handle slabs that I noticed. They give tension to the lock bar. Okay, and by the way, that lock bar, the resistance on it, when we talk about in blade or in handle retention, is about perfect. That's a hard balance to get sometimes. I've seen cold steel get it wrong. And by balance, I'm talking about now how hard is it to get out of handle? Can we actuate it like you've been seeing me? Some lockbacks you can't because you are overcoming that spring tension. Not this one. Perfectly balanced. I wouldn't change anything about it. The handle, therefore, is pretty much awesome. You notice it's secured with mini Torx, flathead variety. Be careful you don't strip those out. I find that it holds them on securely, and it was no big deal taking them off. I did have to take off the clip, which we might as well talk about now. Initially, the clip was not on these knives. Can you believe that? Menaggio Italy, what are you guys thinking? I think they're kind of cluing into the tactical scene here in the U.S. on knives. Blade HQ, actually, it was my understanding, Jake said, dudes, you got to put a clip on that. And they did. So this is kind of an afterthought clip, and for that, I think it's pretty excellent. I would love to see a loop over clip, wouldn't you? One that kind of loops over like that, carries maybe just a little bit deeper. You may like how it is, though. This portion right here will extend from the pocket, giving you something to grab onto, even if you don't have the lanyard on it. Other than that, the clip, I don't have many complaints on. Maybe that it's not super accommodating of a wide and reinforced fabrics like I've talked about in my latest reviews. It's good looking, contrast nice. This one should be blackened on this version. It's not, but at least you have a clip. If it didn't, I wouldn't be reviewing it. Not going to lie to you. Told you how to surprise, and it goes something like this. Talked about the speed, right? How it's awesome. Here's something more awesome. The thumb studs, which allow you to wave this knife. That's right. They do have volcano issues, which means they look like a volcano, but they also are positioned such that you can get to them readily. Notice there's no occlusions in the handle on the Wicked 66. They are out there, and that's a good thing because in your pocket, thankfully carried tip down. You can't swap the clip at all, too, by the way. Sorry, lefties. But it is carrying tip down. You can bring that out, and I did it a lot. Catch that kind of sharp volcano clip on your pocket. It comes ripping out. So this is a waveable knife due to that ambidextrous thumb stud setup. I wouldn't change a thing about that, by the way, Viper. Told you this knife is sick, guys. Durability. Well, like I said, I cut with it extensively. I didn't take it up in the wilderness for months and months. I got to get the information out there, but from what I can see, I see no issues whatsoever. If you have this in hand, tactical guys, I can't imagine you not liking this knife. Unless for looks or blade shape, it's just not your thing. But I tell you what, man, I want to show you some competitive options here to prove my case. It departs, like I said, from some conventions here in TMP, kind of like this knife. The high value HCR 13 MOV Spyderco Resilience, a Hall of Famer here in the Nutnfancy project for a long time, full flat ground. That's a convention for me. Great thumb ramp, great jimping, 5.2 ounces. It's lighter than the Wicked 66. It is a big knife, but by comparison, you can kind of see. Love it too. It is awesome. Just reviewed this one. A standard setter, but much more expensive. HEC Carry Microtech SOCOM, just coming off the EPA, wearing a wicked edge. Look at that edge, S35 V steel. I gotta tell you, I just get excited when I see that just glinting in the light. This thing is so insanely sharp, it frightens me. Love that Microtech SOCOM. I'm bringing it in now just by size comparison. You can see how big the Wicked 66 is. It's a big knife, really big. How about the Auto, the Rogue? Kershaw 2001, great high value auto, now discontinued. Shall we all start crying? Hey, Nutnfancy, why doesn't Kershaw make autos anymore? Well, go watch my SHOT Show videos with Kershaw 2012 and they talk about it. Also in 11, they just didn't want the liability as they perceived it. So it's gone. This knife is special. It's 5 ounces. It's 14C28 in steel, about $140. Cool. How about next to the Wicked 66 size-wise? Roughly in the same ballpark, about the same. It's not the biggest knife on the block, that Wicked 66. Case in point, I haven't seen this knife forever. Something wicked this way cometh. The Espada. Large. Not the G10 version. The expensive version, about $185. 9.8 ounces. Oh, dude, that is a big blade. That is a big mamma jamma. Totally waveable out of pocket as long as you don't get it caught under that thumb ramp. So you can see some size comparison there, right? Maybe one of the reasons I love the Wicked 66 Viper Start so much is because it kind of reminds me of another cold steel knife, Peacekeeper 2, an SK5. This is a bedside stand knife for me. Double-edged, insanely sharp. Kind of a leaf shape, definitely on this, and this kind of reminds me of a leaf-shaped blade too. This isn't hollow ground, different steel. I'm talking just the overall feel it gives me. And for me, kind of just a very purposeful fighting knife. Before I end the video, and it's going to be a sad thing when I do because I love these knives so much, let's take another look at the tan version so you can take a look. Also notice the rounded scales, no hot spots at all. Just perfect milling. And I think for aesthetics, maybe even ergonomics, they're hiding the pivot point. This portion's milled here so you can get a nice purchase on it. These are gorgeous knives, and your mind is going to be blown when you see how much money I'm saving you guys on this knife. Look in the upper right, that's where you're going to go get it. Saving you probably $25 over normal price. Nutnfancy.